The Trump administration asked a federal court to not move forward with Louisiana's case against the FDA policy on Mifepristone, the abortion drug. It said the Trump administration said that they are conducting a review of the abortion drug. Now, according to the Trump administration, Louisiana's lawsuit against the FDA threatens to short-circuit the agency's review and study of the safety risk of Mifepristone. So the court should wait until the review is complete. Well, the problem is many of the states that have laws protecting the unborn and their mothers have been waiting, and they've been waiting, and they've been waiting. And under the Dobbs decision, it made very clear that the states, a part as well as the federal government, the states have a right to protect the unborn. That's not happening because of the policy, the Biden-era policies governing Mifepristone. It's being mailed into the states, and abortion rates are actually going up. Joining me now to discuss this, Dr. Christina Francis, Chief Executive Officer of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Dr. Francis, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It's great to be back.
So let me ask you this question. What do you make of the FDA's assertion that the review of Mifepristone needs to be complete before the court can consider this lawsuit from Louisiana?
Well, I think it's a ridiculous assertion. I mean, I'm very glad that the FDA is commenting publicly once again that they are in fact doing a safety review. But, you know, this Louisiana case is asking for something that is very common sense. They're just asking that that in-person dispensing requirement be put back into place before a woman can obtain the abortion drug, or, as is the case of the individual plaintiff in this case, Rosalie Marquezich, her boyfriend actually obtained these pills online and forced her to take them, forced an abortion upon her that she did not want, and she lost her child because of that. That in-person dispensing requirement was in place for over 2 decades after the drug was approved. It was what was in place under the first Trump administration, and there's no reason that the FDA couldn't immediately reinstate that in-person dispensing requirement while at the same time doing a thorough safety review to see if more safeguards need to be put back into place.
Dr. Francis, I think that's a very good point to make. What the Louisiana Attorney General, the state of Louisiana, is seeking is simply to go back what was in place, not to what I would like to see. I think the drug is dangerous. I think it needs just to go away. But they're just saying go back, as you said, the in-person dispensing requirements, and the fact that what's happening is the failure to enforce federal law on the Comstock Act is allowing this to be mailed into the states, undermining the pro-life laws of the states. How long does it take to do a review? I mean, it's been over a year.
Well, exactly. If the FDA had in fact started their safety review when we were promised that they were, then that should be completed by now, or at least close to completion. But now, you know, my understanding from the legal brief that was filed is now they're saying it could be another year. And during that year, we know that hundreds of thousands of preborn children will lose their lives due to this drug, and tens of thousands of women will be harmed. You know, even using conservative estimates of 63% of abortions being done via these drugs, which are numbers from 2023. I think it's likely higher. And even using the FDA's own very conservative numbers that 1 in 25 women who take these drugs will end up in the emergency room with complications, that still is 30,000 women a year ending up in the emergency room with severe complications. And every day that the FDA waits to do what it needs to do its job, more women are being harmed and more children are losing their lives.
Just for a little bit of context for our viewers and listeners, and I've talked about this a lot, but I just so we understand how this policy that is currently in place came about during the Biden administration. This was after the overturn of Roe. The Dobbs decision came about, and there was a all-of-government approach during the Biden administration to figure out how to circumvent that, and this was one of the ways, the abortion drug. That policy, unlike many of the other policies that Biden put in place, remains. The other policies were overturned by the Trump administration, but this one remains. Can you see this I don't want to sound cynical, but it looks very political in terms of the decision surrounding this policy.
Well, I would agree with you. I mean, there's certainly not a reason from a medical standpoint to keep from reinstating that in-person dispensing requirement. This is frank medical malpractice, what's happening. Not only are women not receiving appropriate evaluation before they get this high-risk drug, but doctors in other states, as you stated, are shipping these high-risk drugs into states where abortion is illegal, and they're then being shielded from the consequences of their actions. You know, when women are being harmed, there was another case in Louisiana, actually, of a teenage girl whose mother ordered these drugs from a doctor in New York and gave them to the teenager against her will, and she ended up with severe complications in the emergency room. This is frank medical malpractice, and it should not be put on hold because of any sort of political calculations. You know, women's health, women's safety should be paramount. Lives of preborn children should be paramount. And as you said, this is not actually, this case out of Louisiana is not actually asking for that much. They're just asking that a woman be evaluated by a physician before she takes this drug so that she can receive fully informed consent about her individual risks related to this drug, so that she can understand about the humanity of that child that's growing inside of her, and so that we can ensure that abusers are not getting their hands on these drugs to force abortions.
Dr. Francis, final question for you. You talked about the complications that many of the women are experiencing because this drug was designed for a certain period of early pregnancy. If it's taken beyond that, it can create big complications. But oftentimes, if it's in one of these about a dozen states where this drug is illegal, and a woman shows up or a girl shows up at an emergency room, oftentimes they're afraid, even though they would not be in trouble if they acknowledge it, but they're afraid to acknowledge that they got this drug through the mail, which further complicates the situation.
Yes, absolutely. And this is not theoretical. I practice in the state of Indiana as an OB hospitalist where abortion is illegal. And I have gone down to our emergency room along with my partners multiple times to provide care for women who were suffering horrific complications after taking this drug. And in fact, one specifically said to me, "Why did nobody tell me that this was a possibility? They didn't tell me that it was going to be like this." And so this is a very real thing that's happening to women. And, you know, obviously, APLOG is against abortion because it ends the life of one of our patients. It harms our other one. But really and truly, on this issue with what's going on right now with Mifepristone, no matter what somebody's position on abortion, they should be opposed to the medical malpractice that is happening. And we all should be demanding that the FDA do its job and ensure the health and safety of women and children across this country.
Could not agree more. Dr. Francis, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate your insight.